Good afternoon, everybody, and to speak on the refugee issue and being in September 2013, I would like to start my presentation today to mention that September as a month means a lot for the Palestinian refugees. In the past 65 years of the tragedy and the catastrophe of the Palestinians, some major events has taken place which has affected hugely the refugee issue and the refugees wherever they are. Sabra and Shatila massacre took place in September. It was in Beirut. Before it, not in 1970, we called Black September, where the figure of the victims, Palestinian victims and martyrs in Jordan, varies according to whoever mentioned the figure. We're talking about thousands, between 5,000 to 20,000. And the other one, Al-Aqsa Intifada, the uprising Intifada, took place on 28th of September 2000, which was one of the outcomes of Oslo Accord. And one of the main incidents which took place, the killing of the international mediator, the Swedish Count Bernadotte. He was slaughtered on 17th of September 1948, who we consider as Palestinians one of our heroes in our history. And the last date in September which affected when it happens and still now, the refugee issue and the Palestinian refugees, the signing of Oslo Accord, 20 years ago in September 1993. All of those incidents meant a lot to the Palestinians. And when we want to tackle those incidents, we can classify the Palestinian issue into three different aspects according to our point of view. The Palestinian issue is a political one, a legal one, and a humanitarian one. And I think it's a wrong approach to tackle our issue as Palestinians is to concentrate on the last one, which is very important, very vital, the humanitarian side. And I believe one of the negative approaches from the United Nations since the tragedy took place in 1948, that they neglected the political one and they concentrated on the humanitarian side. And even this one, it hasn't been touched in the way of to live up to the needs of the Palestinians. I was involved in closed sessions which was organized by one of the Western bodies since 1999, and it was arranged and organized twice a year. And all of the stakeholders of the refugee issue in the Arab countries were involved. And the whole concern from all parties was the last one, the humanitarian side. And I believe that we have reached to such a stage of the conflict by concentrating in one thing which is very important. We should tackle it without mentioning that. And even when you come to the humanitarian side of our issue, it's a big mess for the Palestinian refugees. 2 days ago, I was in Beirut. I visited the Shatila camp. I visited the Palestinian families from Syria side who fled Damascus and elsewhere from Syria to be in Lebanon. And whoever hasn't visited the Shatila camp, he can't imagine, or she can't imagine the situation there. Shatila camp is something which doesn't come to the zero level of the infrastructure wherever you go in the whole world. We are talking about 7,000 Palestinians live with, the sewage is not there. You find 9 members of one family live in one room with sometimes with no toilet. such a big mess for the Palestinians in Lebanon for the past 65 years. You can't imagine that they are nowadays hosting 60,000 of the Palestinians from Syria nowadays. And when you go to the old camps from Lebanon up north to south, you will find some sort of a real human rights issue for nobody, and the responsibility doesn't lie on one person. I disbelieve that we go to one target and say this body international is responsible for that. It's a collective responsibility by all means legally for whoever has an access of power. Regardless, international bodies, UN, with UNRWA or UNHCR, regardless with the host countries, regardless with the PLO, the Palestinian factions, NGOs, and individuals who has some power on that. And you can imagine that 8,000 Palestinians in Shatila camp, with another 20,000 of Syrians who found themselves escaping from the war zone in Syria, being in Shatila camp, and another 8,000 of the Palestinians. So you are talking about 1 kilometer square with more than 35,000 of persons who are living in such a situation. And Lebanon as a state, we have as PRC, as an NGO, we have managed to send 3 European parliamentarians to a delegation to Lebanon, one for the Nahl Bald camp and one specifically for the Palestinian Syrians who fled Syria to Lebanon. And the argument from the Lebanese authorities somehow, some of it you can understand, and other points you can't understand with regard to this. That's why when we are talking about the Palestinian issue, we should combine between politics, which is a law, and a legal side of it. And wherever you go for that, you found yourself in such a combinations. And I think somebody will hurt our cause just to concentrate in one issue regarding the other. And that's the Palestinians in Lebanon. And let me alert whoever have some sort of concerns about us as Palestinian refugees, wherever we are. The diseases, social ones, and other side of negative things from such a crowd, it's really some sort of dangerous zone. And some of parties with a very bad intentions, they are doing some things which I can't illustrate here by trying to go and target the Palestinians in some sort of social bad interaction in Shatila camp and elsewhere. And for us Palestinians, we're supposed to go to some sort of national unity among us to create a body, if I may say so, to tackle such an issues, because we can't leave it for others to look after some sort of internal issues which is supposed to be immediately sorted, immediately going on, and we go as one unit, one body, to speak to the Lebanese, to speak to the other host countries, to speak to the international bodies, to put them to their responsibilities. If I want to go in deep details with regard the Palestinians from Syria, and we are facing in Europe as Palestinians thousands of them who found themselves across all seas, across the world. Some of them has been ended in Thailand, some of them has been ended in Philippines, with nobody is looking after them, and some of them have lost their lives across the Mediterranean Sea and elsewhere, with nobody is tackling their issue as a new Nakba, a new catastrophe. They are reshaping the scene of 1948. And I believe the responsibility is collective to everyone who has any concern about the Palestinian issue. Before Beirut, I was in Amman. I visited another sector of the Palestinian community in a camp called Jarash camp or Gaza camp. Those are around 30,000 Palestinians from Gaza, whom the Jordanian authority doesn't recognize them as an official refugees. And with all respect, the Jordanian model to equate between the Palestinians and the Jordanians is a quite an advanced model in creating some sort of citizenship for the Palestinians. But there are some sort of a human rights issue which is supposed to be addressed with the Jordanian, that the country which managed to host millions of Iraqis, another millions of Syrians, to deal with the Palestinians temporarily, and if we are assuring that the sovereign countries can manage their borders and their internal issue. So to have some sort of within our fellow Arab brothers, better deal with the Palestinians, better hosting with the Palestinians, this issue that's supposed to be tackled politically, legally, and in the humanitarian side. And before all of those, we supposed always to go to the origin of the problem. Again, in the three aspects of the issue. Israel is the main guilt of this. The crime has been committed by the Israelis. We supposed to keep concentrating on this. And whenever we face some sort of serious debate with the Western countries, they keep saying, now let's face the nowadays situation. And they allow legally, and I think as Palestinians, we failed to touch some sort of the core issues in the Arab-Israeli struggles, which is against the law, and we are today with the Human Rights Council. The law of return is one of the main illegal laws which allows a citizen from anywhere, any country from all the world, to travel and be citizen in our land, Palestine, with no obstacles. And nobody nowadays, none of the Palestinian politicians has tackled such an issue, which is legal one. And if I want to go for a main point for you to remind from our presentation here, that there is some sort of pure issue law in the Palestinian and Israeli struggles, which is the right of return from our side, which is legal, and the law of return from the other side, which is an absolute illegal nonsense law, which everybody has been normalized in the world and accepted it. The other side of the Palestinian communities, which we supposed to tackle its issue, and I'm here trying to have an overall view about all the Palestinian communities. The Palestinians in Gaza and the sanctions, again, 1.7 million Palestinians in Gaza being behind bars, if I may want to classify it as this. And here we are not talking about siege, we are talking about Israel and Egypt, and they are coming shoulder to shoulder in crime against the Palestinians in Gaza. And when we are talking about the Palestinians in Gaza, we are talking about 80% of them are refugees. So when we are talking about Gaza, it's a pure refugee issue. And I believe all Palestinians, just to minimize that 80% of the Palestinians in Gaza are refugees, they are losing a very strong points and with regard how to present their issue regard that. And we have sent another 2 parliamentarian delegations to Gaza, and they have noticed how the human rights issue have been abused in Gaza. And nowadays the new regime who's ruling Egypt nowadays, he is doing something which I think we supposed to have a case against Egypt and Israel alike in the international court, because they are doing and they are committing crimes against humanity against the Palestinians in Gaza. And the case is there. It needs somebody to put it at the table and to drag them, because what is happening, it's a massacre against the huge community, and it's continuing. Despite the political side of it, nothing justified killing and a mass killing of human rights, and it's a pure refugees. And when we are trying to go to the West Bank, it's another issue. We are talking about almost 1 million Palestinian refugees inside West Bank and Gaza Strip. And accept it or not, believe it or not, we are coming to an era of another uprising from the camps against Israel, because when you want to assess Oslo Accords and what's happened, Israel is still there. It has become free from taking the administrative side of being occupied power, but still there, handling everything, every corner, every village, every city from the Palestinians. And the Palestinians in West Bank, with all respect to our brothers in the Palestinian National Authority, we are facing a big mess from Israel, and it's a human rights issue. Even sometimes against the norm, the Palestinians in the Gulf, we are talking about more than 600,000 Palestinians living in Saudi Arabia and other countries. The poverty there, believe it or not, for the Palestinian family in the heart of Saudi Arabia. I know them, hundreds of families. They can't live according to what you can as a human being, and charities are paying money for them regardless. So when we are talking about Palestinian refugees after 65 years of the Nakba, we are talking about, I mean, the suffer is still there. The brace of Nakba, they are facing it day by day, and we're supposed to tackle it by all means. Now, if I want to conclude by saying the Palestinian refugee issue is a pure political issue with some sort of legal side of it, which is a human rights issue, and the outcome is the humanitarian one. Somebody who was a mediator for the international body UN, Count Bernadotte, and Nakba took place in May 1948. He came to the country immediately after that. He raised a very historical statement which cost him his life. He mentioned, and I should end my presentation by mentioning, quote him. He said, "It's undeniable that no settlement can be just and complete if recognition is not being accorded to the right of the Arab refugee to return to the home from which he has been dislodged by the hazard and strategy of the armed conflict between Arabs and Jews in Palestine. The majority of these refugees have come from territories which was to be included in the Jewish state. It would be an offense against the principles of elemental justice if these innocent victims of the conflict were denied the right to return to their homes while Jewish immigrants flow into Palestine." He concluded within 3 months with a statement that will give the key solution to the issue. And that's why he was killed. And I believe for the past 65 years, nobody has tackled the issue as he tackled it. It is the right of return. And we have seen from academic research that it's possible, it's practical, and it's visible. And for the Jewish state, theoretically, to absorb millions of the Jewish immigrants. In 1990s, 1 million Russians who claim that they are Jewish citizens were absorbed in the state of Israel, quote unquote. Whereas the Palestinians in Syria or Lebanon, they are less than 1 million. Now, the Jewish people across the globe are 13 million. The Israeli citizens among them are 5 million. So there are a possible of 7 million Jewish immigrants to go wherever they want to Palestine. They have the right for that. And the Palestinians are 7 million Palestinians. One of the prominent academic from our Palestinians, and I'll end with that, Palestinians prominent academic, his name is Dr. Salman Absitta. He went for a breakthrough and he researched and he found that after 65 years of the Nakba, 85% of the Jewish population in Israel are living in 15% of the historic land of Palestine. So the land of the refugees are still there, politically. So if we want to tackle it, it's politics, law, and humanitarian side. Thank you.